Hey y'all, it's me Alex. It has been a while, or at least a week. It feels like a while. Basically what had happened was I kind of told myself like, okay, you can't film until you finish all your finals, and now my finals are done. I have graduated with my Master's of Divinity. I don't have a job or anything, but I am going to be filming a lot because I don't have a job. Today I finally decided to get my shit together and film my ranking all my eyeshadow palettes video. As I've moved into this new space and I've been kind of organizing everything, I decided to make a spreadsheet that has like an inventory of all the palettes that I own, and I ranked them from best to worst, or well, y'all will be seeing it in this video from worst to best. I have 50 eyeshadow palettes, so I think I might have a little bit of a problem. But that's okay because it makes for great content for y'all. This is probably going to be a very long video, so I should really stop rambling and actually get into the content. So at number 50 in my collection is the Essence I'm With the Band palette. Now, this I had bought a couple of Christmases ago. This is what it looks like. It's actually not a bad color story, and it is definitely something that I feel like I should be using more, but honestly, I haven't used this since I bought it. I used it once, and I don't know, like I didn't feel like the shadows were bad quality, but the more I used other things, I just legitimately forgot about this so hard. So this is actually one that I'm going to end up decluttering because I don't feel the need to use this. So that's number 50. It just doesn't do much for me at all. Like it's very, very forgettable. Number 49 is the Moon Slice Beauty Moon Magic palette. Now, you'll actually know that I kind of gave this a pretty favorable review when it first came out, but the reason that this is at number 49 is because basically ever since everything went down with the brand, with Moon Slice Beauty, with, I don't even know, there's another brand, but I forget what it was called, but I made a whole video on it, and every time I look at this palette, I just get like angry. And this is a very good palette if you're more of a beginner when it comes to these sorts of shades, but they're really not that pigmented. They're very, very buildable. You can build them up to get something really big and intense, but between that and like, I have a huge affinity for these types of shades anyway, and I own so many better versions of this palette, I feel, in my collection, that I don't reach for this because it pisses me off whenever I look at it because the brand is so fucking shady. So it's at 49. At 48, we have the Kendo Vegan to Makeup Shade and Light Eye Palette. Well, I got this one of those from She Who Must Not Be Named. This was my Panda palette of last year, and honestly, the shadows were really good when I first got it, and it is like a good neutral palette, like if you like neutral mattes. But as my style has really evolved, aside from like the light shades here, I don't really get any use out of it. It is not super exciting to me anymore. It might just be the fact that makeup styles have changed and this formula has gotten a lot older, so that it's no longer one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas. Yeah, it doesn't make me super happy. Now this is one that I actually like a whole lot, but I really just don't reach for it, and I think if I had fewer palettes in my collection, I would reach for this one a lot more. And that is the Nude Tude from The Balm. This is at number 47. And I do actually really like it. I love the color scheme, and I really do love the Balm's formula. I especially love like this shade here, Sexy, and I think some of the glittery shades in here are very, very pretty. I just don't reach for it because the color scheme as a whole doesn't quite appeal to me as much as I thought it would, but I do use it, and I am really like interested in keeping this around a lot more than some of the other things that are kind of at this level in my collection. A lot of the way that I've ranked things are kind of like how I feel in my soul and not necessarily based on logic. But this one I am actually like interested in keeping around because I do think I can get some good looks out of this. And I love the Balm's formula. I think their mattes are very nice and creamy. I think their shimmers are very beautiful. I wish the Balm would kind of do more interesting color schemes. I don't think I'm their target demographic by any means, so I don't fault them for not doing color schemes that I'm excited by. I just never use it. It's fine. I don't use it though. Next up at number 46 is the Too Faced Sugar Pop palette. This one I keep in my collection out of pure nostalgia. The quality, in comparison to all of my other colorful eyeshadows, is actually quite shit. Like, I got it largely because, one, this was like kind of my first colorful high-end eyeshadow palette when it first came out. That was when I first started really like properly getting into makeup. And I was very excited by this blue raspberry shade. I like the other like colorful shades in here too. It's not awful and it was very good for its time, but I'm gonna swatch the blue raspberry shade just for nostalgia's sake. That's what that looks like. I still think it's a very pretty shade and that's very much the kind of color that I'm drawn to. It's not good. It is not a good palette by any means. It was okay, but this really isn't a cohesive color story. I do keep it because this is the kind of palette that like I have so much of an emotional attachment to that I'm never getting rid of it, even though I own so many better things in my collection, but this, it's not as good as I thought it would be. Next is of a similar brand and variety. Yeah, this one has been discontinued as well, and that's the Too Faced Cat Eyes palette, and this is actually the first ever high-end eyeshadow palette I ever bought. I do have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of Too Faced products. I also used to own their chocolate bar palette, which I've since given to my mom because those are very much like her colors and her sort of color scheme, and she really likes it. Anyway, I have the Cat Eyes palette. This is the first palette the first high-end palette I ever bought. As you can see, I got some good use out of Purr and Tiger's Eye, and actually the neutrals in this are very, very good. I know I often like to shit upon Too Faced purples, but the shade Pussycat, that right there, I mean, it looks better over an eye primer, but she made some points when this kind of first came out. This is actually pretty cute, and I do love the packaging, and I do wish that Too Faced would make more palettes like this. I'm not a huge Too Faced eyeshadow person, as you can tell, because I feel like nowadays they just make very neutral palettes, and even when they did kind of more colorful, interesting color schemes, in comparison to some of the eyeshadows that I've discovered since then, they're really not super great. But since this was my first ever high-end eyeshadow purchase, I am never getting rid of this. This holds a huge place in my soul, so I'm keeping it. Wow, okay, I realized I miscounted and I only have 49 eyeshadow palettes. Still, the next one, which would actually be, that would be my 43rd eyeshadow palette, is the Michelou Witchcraft palette. Now, I got this because of the color story. Like, you can't look at this and think that that isn't like really cool and innovative. I think for me, where it really gets me is that just this is so much work. I love this color story and I keep it around for that, and I think the shimmers can really be worked with if you use like a good glitter glue. The mattes, I think I find the most difficult. Like, the neutral mattes are fine, but the like greens, they take a lot of building up, and I'm really not a huge fan of that. Also, I know Michelou is kind of like, they've been a bit shady about like their palettes and their reformulations and stuff, and I'm really not a huge fan of that. So that's why this is where it is. Next up is the Next up is the NYX Ultimate Edit in Ash. I bought this out of spite because I thought it would be a dupe for the Jeffree and Shane, whatever their mini palette was. I don't know. I've only ever used this once because spite. I can barely open it because I suck. This is what it looks like. There's nothing wrong with this. It is actually pretty good quality. I do like NYX's shadows. Again, I've only ever used it once. I don't reach for it. It's blah. It's whatever. Okay, next up we have the Melt Radioactive palette. Now, I actually have found the use for the one shade I hate, and this you will have probably noticed is from the favorites video that I just posted. Not too recently, but I posted it. Meltdown, this is the one reason that I don't like this palette nearly as much as I should, because obviously I'm a lover of teal, and I love a good teal eyeshadow, but this one sucks. Beyond all belief. It does not blend. It is not anything you can use as a transition shade, and that depresses me, but I have found it a new home in my brows, so that kind of makes up for it. I think this would probably be a bit higher up if I were more into neon shades, because like these four right here are just fabulous. Like, the more purpley blue shades like aren't quite as good, but they're fine, they're workable, but these are really the only four shades that like super excite me out of this. And I don't wear neon eyeshadows a whole lot. It is not my jam for the most part. So I feel like if I was more into that, this would be up a lot higher, but I'm not, and I don't. Next up is the Decaf Chocolate Raspberry Quad from Midas Cosmetics. Now, this one is actually super good quality, and I really do love this entire collection a lot. I think the shadow quality is fantastic, and the color payoff and like the looks that I've gotten out of this are really good. But the problem is, the reason I stuttered and said look at first is because you really only can get one look out of this. Honestly, after this video, I am going to be decluttering this to my roommate, who this would look super cute on. This gives me one look, and I have similar shades that can give me similar looks in the palette that I'm actually wearing on my eyes, which is a lot higher up, which you will see in a few minutes. So it's fine, but the fact that I can only really get one look out of this is what puts it so far down. At number 39 is the Urban Decay Full Spectrum palette. This is what it looks like. This was the palette that I think everyone who missed out on the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca remix palette bought in hopes that this would be as good, and then it never quite was. Now this is actually pretty good. I love kind of like this row here, and like this one's fine. I don't really get a whole lot of use out of the top row except for like Warning. Warning I think is very good. I do really like Urban Decay shimmers. Their mattes are not my favorite shadows by any means, but I think they can do very good shimmers when they try. So this one actually isn't as bad as like a lot of people make it out to be. I think the only reason that people will rate this super low, even myself included, is that it isn't the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca remix, because none of us were able to get that one. But I do think it's super good. It was very good for its time, and I can see myself getting a lot of use out of some of the shadows. Like Calavera, at the time that this was released, no one was really doing yellow eyeshadows, and I think that this actually was pretty good. I got some pretty good color payoff out of that. This is one that I'm still like keeping around, even if it's kind of like the Too Faced palettes. Like this one is better quality than the Too Faced palettes, like by miles. But this one is also very much like a nostalgia kind of thing that I'm keeping around. Also, speaking of nostalgia, a lot of Urban Decay palettes are going to be lumped here for just a sec. The Urban Decay Vice 4 now, first of all, this packaging is like half the reason that I bought this. I think it's super pretty. This is what it looks like on the inside, and there really aren't a whole lot of mattes in it, which I think is probably my biggest issue. And the fact that I really only go in for this for like the teals, the purples, and like that shade right there. This, for me, solidifies the fact that Urban Decay does do very good like jewel toned shimmers, but their mattes really do leave something to be desired, and I think for the kind of makeup that I do in 2020, the ratio of mattes to shimmers and kind of the color scheme in this doesn't quite do what a lot of the other palettes that I own do, but you know, this is another nostalgia keep. Next up is the Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. Now this is the first ever Urban Decay palette that I've bought. This is what it looks like. Now a lot of people really did not like this palette, and I actually thought it was pretty great. Like I said, Urban Decay mattes are not my favorite, but I do love their like softer kind of like shimmers and satins. I think they do a very good job of, and I got so much use out of this when I first got it, and I still bring it out when I'm feeling like kind of smoky. My problem is like, this is not the color scheme that I go for anymore. I think when I first got it, it was very nice because I did kind of, I think I was still blonde when I first got it. So I would go for like really like dark grungy, cool tone looks. And now that my hair is more of a cool tone color, I don't reach for like cool tone neutrals as much anymore. But I still really like this palette, and honestly, the packaging on this is my favorite out of all of the Naked palettes. Like, look at this gorgeousness. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Now, you'll be surprised by the one that I'm putting right above this because it's very similar. That is the CoverGirl True Naked Smoky palette. I did a comparison between this one and the Urban Decay one. And the reason I put this one above it is because while they're very similar palettes, this one kind of condenses this to the more interesting shades to me, not any more of like the browns and stuff. Like the browns are fine, but I'm not brownie. And I think perhaps it's like the fact that this one is definitely like I bought it newer than I did the Urban Decay one or something, but the shadow quality I think is just a little bit easier to work with, a little more pigmented, especially in the mattes. The mattes in this one are far superior to the ones in the Naked Smoky, and the satins and shimmers are kind of like on the same level, so that's why I'm putting that above this. Next is the e.l.f. blah. The e.l.f. Matte for Matte Jewel Pop Palette, which looks like this. Now, I think e.l.f. actually does pretty good eyeshadows when they try. I've had some big misses with them, but these are actually pretty good quality. They're pretty creamy, easy to work with. The problem is I feel like with this one, this is just like a palette of colorful transition shades. So I really do not use this as much as I would like to because I don't wear a whole lot of all matte looks. And when I do an all matte look, I'm definitely not really reaching for these colors. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, we are back to another Urban Decay palette, and that is the Naked 3 palette. And this is probably my second favorite out of all of my Urban Decay palettes. I have one more that's a little bit higher up. This is what it looks like. It's this beautiful rose gold. Again, kind of like the Naked Smoky, I know that this one isn't anyone's favorite Naked palette by any means. And like, honestly, I don't think it's the greatest quality eyeshadow palette I own, but something within me, like always around February, around Valentine's Day, and like early spring, something within me always draws me back to do some very like soft, neutral, romantic looks with this palette. And they always like, even though, you know, the matte to shimmer ratio is garbage, with all of these shimmers that are in this, I honestly think that this is a very, very good one. I like the looks that I get out of this, even if I only use it like a couple times a year. Okay, next up are two, I'm going to rank them very quickly because I am probably going to be running out of footage soon. At 33 is the Shroud Cosmetics Freak Show, and at 32 is Hotel. Now, Freak Show, I'm going to attempt to show this on camera without the entirety of the one broken shade that's been broken for a very long time falling out. This is what it looks like. You can kind of tell the broken shade is in the middle. And these are very, very lovely shimmers. Both of these are all shimmer palettes. I'm gonna close that. And I like Hotel just a little bit more because Freak Show has some more like kind of grungy shades and I think they're very, very beautiful. But I really love, like even more so, I love the red and the green in this one. I think these are a little bit more vibrant. So when I'm looking to use one of these shades, I usually go for this one first, just because the shades are like a little more in your face. I think these are very, very, very well curated, and I love that Shroud, formerly Strobe, when these first came out. I really love that they did these because I'm a huge American Horror Story fan, and I thought that even though these are all shimmer palettes, which is why they're not quite as high up, these are extremely good quality, and I love the colors that they curated. I feel like they did a very good job of capturing like the Freak Show season and the Hotel season. Whew. Okay, next up is the Too Faced Razzle Dazzle Berry palette. Now this one I think is the best Too Faced palette out of all the ones I own. I was so pleasantly surprised by this. First of all, it smells really good. And I love berry toned eyeshadows, and I thought this one was super good quality. I expected it to be really bad because Too Faced purples are notoriously bad, but this one is actually really great. I love the shimmers, the mattes play really nicely, and I overall just think that this is a very good and easy color scheme to work with. I especially love that shade right there. Like if Too Faced came out with more stuff kind of this variety rather than the more neutral variety that they've done, I would, well, they're really problematic, so I wouldn't. But theoretically, if it weren't for who they are, I would buy more from them. Now, next up is one that you've actually heard me talk about a whole lot recently, and that is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Self-Made palette. I actually, like, I think that this is super great. Like, the parts that they do well in this one, they do super well. Like, this entire little quad over here is fantastic, but they're just some shades that I think made sense to me when I first got it back in 2015, 5 years ago. But now I'm just like, meh, I don't care. Like, this kind of little bit right here, I'm like, no, on. And so it's kind of the thing of like the parts that they do well, they do really, really well. But the parts that like I don't like, I really, really, really don't like. And maybe it's because that's my Pan That Palette project for this year, so I do have a lot more visceral feelings about it. But that's how I feel. That's just how I feel. Next up is the Earth and Ocean palette from e.l.f. Cosmetics. Now this one is actually a super good quality palette. I love this color scheme, and I think the shadows are really easy to work with. I'm not a huge fan of like Tundra I had a little bit of trouble with, but overall I do think that this is a really good palette, especially for like the green side. I don't quite reach for this as much as I would like to, but I do think that this is a pretty solid palette if you are someone looking to get some affordable, more colorful, easy to work with shades. At number 28 is the Festival palette from Juvia's Place, which looks like this. I largely use this for the kind of orange, pink, and red. Occasionally this shade. I'm not a huge fan of like the golds. I hate this black shimmer shade because I don't know what to do with a black shimmer shade. And I do like Juvia's Place shadows. I like a lot of other shadow formulas better, so I get why people on YouTube like them, but it's not my favorite and the brand is kind of sketchy. But I do really like these kind of shades in the palette, but I don't find myself reaching for this as often as I would like. Okay, up next, I barely count this as an eyeshadow palette, but I think it works. It is the KVD Vegan Beauty blah 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 Alchemist palette. I bought it because of the name and also because it's like a bunch of holographic shades. I'm working on panning this one as well, and I really liked it when I first got it. Now I'm just not super into holographic highlighters, and I think that these are definitely pretty chalky as far as highlighters go anyway. But the reason that it is so high up is because these make really good inner corner highlights, and in times when I do like some monochromatic looks but I don't quite have like, you know, light green or a light blue or something that I can pop in the inner corner, this is actually pretty good quality. So I don't use it for highlighters or anything like that, but I like kind of using this for just like, this is an inner corner highlight palette to me. Okay, at number 26 is the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. Now this is what it looks like. This was honestly so impressive when it first came out. I think that this is probably one of the best drugstore colorful eyeshadows I have ever tried. It is so lovely. It performs super, super great. The only reason that it's not ranked higher is because this isn't necessarily the color scheme that I sort of go for when I'm doing a more colorful look. I'm more into like grungy colors, and this isn't quite it. But especially these like mattes over here, I think it has a really good matte to shimmer ratio and like enough neutrals in it that if you're more of a neutral person, you could definitely get some use out of it. But it's been discontinued, so if you don't have it, sucks to be you. That was mean. I'm getting mean in quarantine. At number 25, we have the Urban Decay Electric palette. This is my favorite Urban Decay palette of all time. In fact, I have 2 of these. You don't even need to know. You don't even need to. This is what it looks like. It is beautiful. Honestly, I know that in the grand scheme of things, these aren't the greatest colorful eyeshadows ever. Like, I've tried enough indie brands to know that they're better colorful eyeshadow formulas than this. But nostalgia plus like chaos, it keeps me going. Actually, nostalgia plus chaos is kind of my entire life. But this is what it looks like. It's super cute, and even though it's like mostly shimmers, not a whole lot of matte stick, and I think nowadays you would have to bring in some other sorts of colors with this in order to really make it work. I think that this is actually pretty great still, especially like the purples and stuff, so I still like it, and I'm still like holding on to this until the day I die. You will have to pry this out of my cold dead hands. Not to be dramatic. Okay, next up is the Pumpkin Spice Latte Quad from Midas Cosmetics at number 24. This is actually something that I did not expect to love as much as I did. I actually got this on accident when I had made my order. They were supposed to send me the raspberry one, and they sent me this one, told me to keep it, and they sent me the raspberry one. And honestly, this is super great. I love that you can really actually get a wide variety of looks with just these 4 shadows, and whenever I wear this, I always get a lot of compliments. It's not higher up because it is, you know, you get a limited number of looks, but I think for a quad, this is one of the most versatile quads that you can get. Next up is also of the warm neutrals variety, and that is the NYX Cosmetics Ultimate Warm Neutrals palette. Normally it would have its like stuff on the front, but it doesn't. I bought this because I saw that it was a really good dupe for the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette, and normally I'm not super into dupes because I always just still end up lusting after the thing itself, but this is actually the first dupe I've ever bought that really did actually replace the need for the more expensive thing. Ever since I got this and I've been using it, I just really haven't felt like I need to buy the Urban Decay Naked Heat. Like, if I ever panned all of these shades, maybe I might buy it, but I think these shadows are just as good quality, if not better, than a lot of shades from Urban Decay. And I think you can actually get a huge variety of like warm, yes, it's all warm tone neutral looks, but you can get a huge variety of warm tone neutral looks out of this. So it's really great and I like it a lot. Okay, next up is the Shroud Cosmetics Creepy Cute palette. This was, first of all, the magnet in this is intense. This is what it looks like. It is a pastel palette, and I'm not a huge pastel person, but I do think that the shades in this are quite good. Take a Hint especially is one of my favorites. I love a good lime green. Even though I'm not a huge pastel fan, so I don't use this as much as I would like to, this is such a good quality matte pastel shade palette thingy. So I am very happy with this, and that is why it is so high up, even though I don't use it as much as other people might. Next up is the Menagerie Cosmetics Feral palette. Now, I love Menagerie Cosmetics shadows. They make amazing, amazing eyeshadows. The only reason this isn't higher up, because I think all of these shadows just have really good quality. I've always gotten great looks out of this. The only reason it's not higher up is just that this color scheme, I like it. I don't think it's bad, but it just doesn't quite appeal to me as often as some of the other color schemes that I own do, like, if that makes sense. It's not that it's a bad color scheme. I especially love like these right here, the brighter shades in this, but I reach for other things over this pretty often. Okay, next up is the e.l.f. and J. Kissa collaboration palette coming in at number 20. It looks like this. I really wish that this palette got a lot more hype. I know a lot of people didn't think that this was very cohesive, but honestly, this is the most impressive e.l.f. palette I've ever owned, and I thought they did a very good job with this entire collaboration. I love J. Kissa's style, and I love the sorts of shades that she put in, and always when I use this, I always just feel really cool. So I think it's super great. Next up is number 19, which is the Karoo palette from Igneous Cosmetics. I'm grouping all of the Igneous Cosmetics palettes together. All these are very, very good quality. I love Igneous Cosmetics. How many times can I say the brand? I especially love their mattes, even though they're very, very pigmented, and you should not use them if you do not like a lot of pigmentation. So this is what this one looks like. It has nothing to do with shadow quality between these three. It's more just like based on color scheme. This one is very nice, but it is not quite my favorite color scheme. Next up is the Deep Blue palette, which is a little bit more difficult to open, but it is more like this nice bluey purpley green palette, and I love that. And then my favorite out of the three of them is the Amazon palette, and that's because those are more like foresty olivey greens, and it's nice and grungy, and I like it a lot. Coming in at number 16 is the one I'm wearing on my eyes right now that has given me permission to declutter that little quad from Midas Cosmetics, and that is the ColourPop X's and O's palette. This is very much a basic palette. It is not fancy by any means, but every look that I come up with out of this always looks really nice. I love this color scheme. I just think it's so, so beautiful, and I love ColourPop shadows. I wouldn't recommend it if you own like a lot of shadows like these, but I think like I didn't quite, or more that these are all very much like shadows that I'd wear on such a regular basis that I've just really gotten my money's worth out of it, and it's great. At number 15, I have my Anastasia Beverly Hills and Alyssa Edwards palette. This looks like this. This is my 4th place Anastasia palette, about 15th place overall in my eyeshadow collection. I do really like this. I think that this is such a good quality palette, and I'm really happy that Anastasia came out with more bright eyeshadows, because obviously I'm a bright eyeshadow lover. I love a good funky color scheme. The only thing that takes it away from like being closer to the top is more that the pinks and purples do kind of stain my eyes. But otherwise, I do think it's quite nice. Up next is another Anastasia palette, and that is the Modern Renaissance. I know that people are really, really over this one, but I think it's just such good quality. I love these sorts of shades on myself. I love warm tone eyeshadows because of my hair, so I think it looks super cute. And this was the palette that started the warm tone trend. It's nice, it's good quality, I like it still. Coming in at number 13, I have my Dark Mattes palette from Viseart, and I really like this. I do not think it's worth $80, so only buy this if you can get it on sale. But I really do love the shadow quality of Viseart, and I love these sorts of tones. You just can't really get quite a full look out of this, so I like just taking 1 or 2 shades and then pairing this palette with another one. but I love Viseart shadows. I think Viseart's mattes are just like amazing. So it's quite good. It's not $80 good, but I still really like it. At number 12 is the Sugar Pill Fun Size palette, which looks like this. This is my preferred pastel palette of the two that I own, just because this one is kind of mixed with a few more vibrant shades rather than pastel shades, because I just don't think pastels are super flattering on me. But I really like this one. I love Sugar Pill shadow quality of what I've tried. I think these are pretty great. I'm running out of time and things to say. Okay, so this is my top 11. So these are like my favorites out of all the favorites. Okay, at 11th place is the Pinky Rose Exotic Peacock palette. I love this because, well, peacock tones are some of the best tones. I think it is quite great. I love how this looks. It makes me so happy. And the shadow quality, like, it's not my favorite, but like, they're really good. They're really great, and this has a nice ratio of like mattes to shimmers. Yeah, it is good. I am so running out of things to say. I think I'm becoming boring. At 10th place is my most recent acquisition, and that is the Nabla Dreamy 2 Mystic palette. This is what that looks like, and oh! Honestly, if I use this more, probably as this becomes like an older staple in my collection, this will probably work its way up the ranks. But I love the sorts of looks that I get out of this. I love this color scheme. I just think that the way that this is set up really does encourage me to think outside the box. And I just think it's absolutely lovely. Like, Nabla's mattes are just amazing. At number 9 is the Midas Cosmetics Green Tea Macchiato palette. This one is my favorite of that little quad collection that they did, like the coffee quads. I love this because, well, hi, hello, I'm me. I love teals, I love mustards, I love grungy tones, and even this, like, the shimmery pewter-y shade here, I think that is so, like, cool and interesting, and you can get so many lovely looks out of this little quad. I think this is the most versatile of their collection, so I love it a lot. At number 8 is the Menagerie Cosmetics Dragon Child palette. I was so excited when this palette first came out, and I still love it so much. Like I said, I love Menagerie Cosmetics eyeshadows. It's probably one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas, like up there with like Viseart and Anastasia. I think that this is such a good palette. As you can tell, I've like used the hell out of it, and I'm still nowhere near finishing any of these shades. I absolutely adore this color scheme. I think you can do so many unique things, and it really trains your eye to kind of do some more unique looks. So I really do quite like this one. Next up is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. Now, I like this one a lot more than other people like this one. It is this lovely earth-toned, pigmented goodness. I had the old formulation. It's difficult to work with, but as I've kind of like worked on my makeup skills, this kind of just gets easier and easier to work with for me, and I really do like it. I love this color story, and I wish Anastasia would do more stuff like this again. Next up is the ColourPop Good Sport palette. I really love this kind of, well, as you can probably guess as we get more up and up, I love grungy earthy tones, and this one I think is probably the most interesting color scheme that ColourPop has ever put out with. I really do love ColourPop's shadow formula. I think they're probably also up in my like top favorite formula, so I think this one is super nice. I love the purples. The shimmers in here are just absolutely fantastic. So I really like this one. Okay, it is time for my top 5. At number 5, I have the Certify Affinity 2 palette, which is this beautiful blue and green monochromatic palette. This looks like a cute little can of Sprite, but in eyeshadow form. I think it is super great. Certify makes amazing shadows. This is the only palette I really own from them, but I would like to own more. I love blues and greens. Blues and greens are kind of my bread and butter, aside from purples, which you will see a little bit more of as I move along. At number 4 is another recent-ish eyeshadow purchase, and that is the Melt Muerte palette. This is what that looks like. I adore this color scheme. Whenever I use this, I always just get so very inspired. I think the shadow quality is fantastic. It is much better than that of the Radioactive palette. I look at this and I see so many different ways that I can use it, and every look that I do with it always looks so cool, and also very much like looks distinctive to this palette, if that makes sense. So I think it's just gorgeous. At number 3, I have the Menagerie Cosmetics Violet Ink. It is this monochromatic little purple palette. I absolutely adore this. I love purple eyeshadow. Purple eyeshadow is my favorite color of eyeshadow of all time. It's so cool because it's this little like monochromatic palette, and yet all of the looks you can get out of this are so distinct, and the colors Yes, they're all purples, but they don't muddy up with one another, and I think this is just such like cool quality, and I love it. It is small, but it is mighty. As you can tell, I am running out of steam. Speaking of small but mighty, we have the Viseart Dark Edit palette. This is what it looks like. It is so super cute. It's so tiny and adorable, and I love it. Now, again, this one is Viseart. I'm not saying don't pay full price for this. Wait for a sale, but every look I get out of this is just amazing. I love the quality. The shimmers are actually really great. A lot of people don't like Viseart shimmers, but I really, really do. I just think that this goes so well like with the colors in here, and also it really does fit in with a lot of the colors that I generally wear in my wardrobe. So I just, this is almost $40 full price, but I still love it. And then finally, we only have one palette left. You can guess which one it is. And that is the Anastasia Beverly Hills and Jackie Aina palette. First of all, the packaging in the natural lighting, amazing. This is what it looks like. I wore this for my like graduation photo shoot that Casey and I did in our front yard. And I've worn this for so many lovely events in my life just because this color scheme is so beautiful. I feel like every color in this works together. You can get a very neutral look. You can get a very like bold, colorful, purpley pink look. The shimmers in this are just like amazing quality, and I am so obsessed. I think it might be on sale right now. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not keeping up that much with sales, but this is super great, and if you don't own it, you definitely should, because it is that fantastic. Jackie did amazing, as she always does. I need to go put these things back, so that's gonna be a task. But anyway, thank you so much for getting this far in this video. If you have, I'm really happy I did this, even though I completely miscounted my eyeshadow palettes. But anyway, if you like more videos that might be a little bit shorter than this, but also really to make up, you should really subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up, and I will see y'all in my next video. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Bye!